How we doing? Are we live? Sorry for the little bit of a delay, everybody. My name is Zach Haller. This is my first edition of Trending Topics here on Real Progressives. So I'm just gonna give a second to let a few people sign on. I'm going to sign onto my computer and share this stuff. So click share. If you're here, type in the. Don't be shy to type in the comments. Definitely want a lot of people to type in the comments and tell me where you're from. Feel free to give me an ASL, age, sex, location, if you want to be really, 90s about your internet habits. But yeah, tell me where you are, and I'm going to share this on my personal Facebook and personal Twitter, and I encourage you to share it as well. We're going to be here for about 30 minutes tonight. Tonight is the first night of my new program here on Real Progressives called What's Trending? Hashtag Trending Topics. And just a little bit of background. Tonight, overall, is going to be kind of an introduction to what I hope to accomplish with this series, and a little bit about me, and we'll do a little bit of a show, so to speak, in terms of talking about what's going on in the news today. And then in the future, we will be having guests come on, kind of like what you typically will see with Real Progressives, where Steve or Mike will sit down with, or not sit down with, but virtually sit down with someone super interesting. And generally speaking, again, the program is called Trending Topics. It's going to be a, am I crooked? Oh, look at me. Let's see if I'm crooked. I'm totally crooked. What am I doing here? I don't want to be side to side, do I? Sorry guys, I'm learning this. This is my first time, can you tell? I take a lot of selfies, but not a lot of live video. I need a rig. That's on my list. That's on my budget for my show. It's a rig. How's this? Okay. So yeah, definitely I'm trying to keep up with it as much as possible, but definitely keep in there with feedback. If I have something stuck in my teeth or in my beard, absolutely let me know. And I will hopefully see it soon enough. I fixed that. Sorry, thanks for people for bearing with me while I was sitting landscape style. So we are going to be talking about a number of different things on Trending Topics. In general, I plan to have this be a either 9 or 12 episode series. So at the end of this, I will wrap it all up and put it on podcast. My intention is to, on each episode, have a topic that we're addressing, specifically as one of the pieces, in addition to bringing on folks who are commenting on current events and what's getting censored from Twitter at the time, basically. So if I were to start with a little bit of who I am, so some of you, most of you may recognize me from Twitter. My hair isn't up and I have my shirt on, so you'll get used to the many faces of Zach Haller. But my name is Zach Haller, and I am 32 years old. I live in Seattle, Washington. I'm from the Midwest, born in Minneapolis, went to Madison for school, lived in Chicago for a long time, was involved with the Obama campaigns in Chicago, and I moved to Washington about 3 years ago. I tell everybody that in 2012, Washington obviously is a very progressive state, and I moved here because I wanted to hand out doobies as party favors at my gay wedding, and the only place that I could do that, the first place that I could do that, was Washington. And so I say that jokingly, even though it's true, but I say that because I did move out here because of the progressive politics, and Seattle specifically, obviously, both Seattle, Washington, Seattle City and Washington State are really leading the progressive movement here, and it's really exciting to be here. And yeah, so I relocated to the West Coast, so here I am. In terms of how you know me, so on Twitter, so I've had Twitter, and I'm going to, selectively give you my tangents, because that's kind of what the point of this is. I have a very, rambling brain, like most of us, with 10 tabs open at any given time. But I'm going to indulge you indulge me with details about my Twitter experience, because basically this whole podcast, this series, or this program is going to be about how Twitter has been a part of the revolution in terms of bringing in new media viewpoints that aren't coming in through other ways, and basically how I have operated on Twitter, doing what I have, and to the extent that people think it's successful, I'll talk about some of the metrics that I have. I need to stop doing air quotes so much. I'll talk some of the metrics I have a little bit, but so I've been on Twitter for about 10 years, and it's interesting because I never really necessarily expected it to become this really big thing, but back when it first came out, I thought that it would be good for me to get a handle just right off the bat in case it got big. I also found out not long after it began that all of the tweets are archived in the Library of Congress, which only if your tweets are public are they archived in the Library of Congress. So at that time, back in the day, I was like, this is just something about me, but I thought that that was really cool, that Twitter archives all public tweets in the Library of Congress. I'm like, okay, so maybe my writing will never get anywhere, no one will ever publish it, but at least I can put my public tweets in the Library of Congress. That'll be cool, so someone can find that there. I really thought that that was cool, and so I started a public Twitter profile. And I think that it's important that everyone have Twitter profiles, so I'll talk about why that is important. But I think that it's also important that people post their tweets public, and not only because it goes in the Library of Congress, but also because obviously they're more shareable. And if you're going to go through the act of tweeting, I think that the best way to do it is to do it in a way that you are presenting you're presenting an opinion to the public, and you're doing it in a way where you're kind of caging it to fit what you're saying, and whatever your career is, whoever you are, whether you use your real name or not, that's something that I'll touch on. But I think that I wouldn't encourage people to use Twitter to be negative or to hate on people and things like that. Obviously that happens a lot, and that's like the worst, the troll culture. But you can use it in a way, even if you don't like Twitter, if you're more of a Facebook person, you can use Twitter in a way, even if you tweet only once in a while, you can tweet in a way to experiment with your own viewpoints, practice writing short, concise thoughts, but really to retweet and really to follow people that you support and to give voices to people that you think deserve their platform to be raised. So even if you're not on Twitter, I would encourage everyone to get an account and to set it up to the extent that you're willing. Please do not have an egg in your Facebook or in your Twitter avatar. Please put something, because the eggs are terrible. Even if it's not a face picture, it doesn't matter. Make it look believable so people realize that you're a person probably. I don't really think that it makes a whole lot of sense to tweet without an identity. I understand that it's hard to put your name out there, because especially when you're presenting opinions like mine that are not necessarily conventional and are really going against the grain of the establishment, obviously there are potential consequences to speaking out, and that's going to be one of the main themes of this series. But I think that people should be encouraged to find a Twitter persona that fits what their lifestyle is, and as part of the revolution, learn to use that Twitter profile in a way that supports the revolution and supports people that are breaking in through Twitter like me, and supports new journalists and supports basically anyone who's challenging the establishment that is kind of forcing information down our throats. There's a quote that I love that I always say about Twitter, and my Twitter handle is my name, at Zach, Z-A-C-H, and then my last name is Haller, H-A-L-L-E-R. If someone can, yeah, there it is. Thank you, Melissa. So that's it, and it's pronounced Haller, but you can say Holla if you want, because that's fun too. But anyway, so I think that, a quote that I love about Twitter that I really believe is that Facebook makes you hate people that you know, and Twitter makes you like people that you don't know. I think that that's totally true, because Twitter is a place that people go to look for people who are talking about the same thing as them at that time. And hopefully it's to find other people who are like-minded, and that's a positive experience. That's how I consider Twitter, is going to find other people that you agree with and lifting their voice and comparing your viewpoints, vetting your viewpoint up against theirs. And Facebook is really kind of more of something that people it's very personal. You have friends and family members on there that aren't necessarily people you agree with for any reason or have to agree with. I mean, I am all about people disagreeing. I think it's bizarre that this group think my mentality that everyone wants to think the same thing. That's foreign to the way my brain operates. But Facebook has more of like an intimate,
social web. And I don't think that people take Facebook friends to listen to their political opinions necessarily. And you don't, my Facebook has kind of gotten, I've put a lot of my Twitter content on Facebook over time because it's just, become relevant and more interesting, I guess, lately. But I try not to put a whole lot of my opinions on my Facebook because all my Facebook friends mostly are personal friends. And hopefully they're my friend whether they agree with my political opinions and what I decide to post on Facebook or not. But that's obviously not always the case. And I also don't think Facebook defriending and things like that, that's like not a big deal at all to me. I always am kind of surprised to find out when people think that, like, oh, you defriended me, it's over, we're not friends anymore. I'm like, are you human? Like, that app was way after your human body came into existence, and I really don't think that it's that big of a deal to unfollow or unfriend people on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, any of that stuff. I don't think it's very personal. I don't think people should think of it personally. It's just an app. They're just programs. There's applications. They're data that's getting harvested to sell to big companies. So don't take it too personally. I think that everyone, especially in terms of the unity that we as a society want to have to move forward in whatever political landscape, I think that people in general should take their social media accounts a little bit less seriously, more with a grain of salt. So in terms of Twitter, so one of the things so I've been tweeting for a long time and watching people and how they tweet and what makes a good tweet and what gets retweets and things like that, and that's a lot of the stuff that I'm going to be talking about, is what makes content, from the content of it to the presentation of it, what makes it viral, what makes it shareable, what makes it interesting. Obviously, it's going to be covered a lot on this series, but let's see here. Twitter, and I lose my train of thought a lot, so we'll get to see how well I am at my flowchart, getting myself back to what I was talking about. So I have been watching people tweet, and like Megan Amram is one of the Twitter stories that she's a comedian, one of the funniest people on earth, absolutely hysterical. Found her on Twitter ages ago, funniest tweets ever, and just became obsessed with her. And then like 2 years later, Amy Poehler discovered her, and she's been writing for basically every funny show that's ever on. Megan Amram is probably writing it. And she basically got famous from tweeting. She obviously has a lot of other really impressive things in her background, but she basically grew up and out of Twitter as a famous person. And there are other people like that. And so Megan, for example, she's the person that I learned to drop the period from the end of your tweets from. And other people, I just would watch them tweet and see what makes sense and see what gets retweeted and see what doesn't, and see how crazy you can be because it's just like one random thought that you're putting out there at that time, and learning to delete tweets if you want, because you can, because it's just Twitter and they'll still be in the Library of Congress, but you can delete it and then it's not your timeline anymore. To me, that's like just like saying never mind, I don't think that anymore. That's one of the things that I like about Twitter. I feel like it's a very safe space, that you can just delete something if you don't like it. Obviously with journalists, when you're clearing content, that's a totally different thing. And Twitter's an interesting place because it is just kind of a place for amateurs and everyone to contribute their own individualistic tweets, and to some extent, tweets from individual people with their journalists or whatever involvement they have in the current events. Sometimes tweets and deletion of tweets obviously mean more than just a deleted tweet. But in terms of experimenting with your ideas, tweet something, and if 3-4 people like disagree with you right away, if you want to delete it, feel free. I mean, it's just a good learning experience, in my opinion. It's really helpful when you tweet something and you're like, okay, I just thought of this. It's brand new. It's about something that's going on right now. Everyone's going to figure out what their opinions are on it. I'm going to say mine. And if you get like 3-4 retweets pretty quick, you're like, oh, cool, people agree with me. If no one touches it, it's like, oh, maybe that's not that interesting. And if people disagree with you in whatever manner, or if a troll sticks you from one of the Hillbots, then you know you're onto something, so keep working on that topic. But you really can learn a lot from the response from your tweets, and you can put out 50 million tweets, however many tweets you want, you can put out, and each one can be a little bit of a learning experience. And especially as we're tackling the new media empire and what the world looks like since social media, since this is all obviously very new in the last 10 years, we get to create it, and the more good people that are participating and the more people that are using it as a platform for education and sharing and stuff like that, that's good, and we should do more of it. So get a Twitter. The first big tweet that I had, it's pinned to my profile, so you may have seen it, you may have retweeted it, and I may have donated money to burn your name, and if you did, thank you. Feel free to retweet it now. So that was a tweet that was my first note that Twitter was censoring hashtags in the election. And I had noticed that Twitter had censored things before. Facebook had been censoring. I mean, for me at least, Twitter trends make sense when you see it. I mean, it's older now, but when you would see Twitter trends, you would see whether or not the person, you would see whether or not the tweet was, if it's just a person's first name or first and last name, or like even now, sometimes before, if Twitter can't catch the trends fast enough. For example, you'll catch a section of a phrase that's tweeting because everyone is explaining the same current event, and you'd see like if it were this Kelly Ann situation, you would maybe see like kneeling on couch trending, which you knew wasn't people being like kneeling on couch. You would be like, oh, I've gleaned that so many people are explaining this as kneeling on couch that's what's trending, and you see that this is just kind of an algorithm pulling information, and this is the snippet of phrase that is people are most tweeting about. Facebook, to me, when the Facebook trending topics came out, separate to Twitter, to me it was very obvious that Facebook was just curating it. Like it was, you would see Kellyanne Conway, and then they'd put their little byline underneath there, and so it's like, okay, Facebook is obviously always approaching this like a curation, like this is entertainment platform, which it is, but we forget about that. And so Facebook was basically always kind of putting up there like what they like approved that everyone's talking about in terms of trends. And I thought that was very obvious from the fact that all the trends were always capitalized, always punctuated correctly, and they would have a byline even. Facebook would often add in comments on why it's trending, and it's like, all right, I'm getting all this information about something that's supposedly just being talked about a lot. But Twitter, it took them a while, and they still do let a lot of natural, actual, legitimate, organic trends trend. And anyone who's on Twitter, and people who are on Twitter who know that you can search around and find how many hashtags are. Thanks for joining us, Marcy. And people who are, checking how many trends how many hashtags have how many tweets on them. You can observe how many numbers are going up. And so, last year, after the event where the gal Ashley Wilson. Totally screwing up the name. The event where they unraveled the Super Predator banner, and it was which Hillary is this tonight? Which Hillary, the hashtag, which I thought was the absolute perfect hashtag to describe this person that's like completely two-faced, super, super, super powerful hashtag, and all of a sudden it blew up, and I thought that was such an amazing thing for people to lob onto, because as someone who is trying to get Bernie to win the primary, I think that Hillary Clinton's duplicity on every issue was really one of her biggest problems. But anyway, so this hashtag started out blowing up, and then all of a sudden disappeared, and I was like, that's not right. People are talking about this. And, you can really just follow the money pretty quickly and be like, oh, Twitter and all these, tech industry, they all were behind Hillary. All these rich people were behind Hillary anyway. We kind of knew that. So I put that tweet on there, and it just started climbing, and it was crazy to see the analytics. But then, a lot of folks that I talk to on a regular basis on Twitter, does anyone know what time it is, by the way? Because I can't see on my phone what time it is. If someone can tell me what time it is, that'd be great. Let's see here. Which Hillary, the hashtag? Oh, a lot of the people that I've started talking to, a lot of people that I know here are people that we would analyze these hashtag disappearances with, and what's getting censored and why it's getting censored, because those are really the hot button issues. If something's getting censored, it's like, why do they not want us to know that? So that's basically how my Twitter got started, and in terms of what I want to do on this program, as we 7:24 Pacific. Thank you, Julie. We'll do about 10 more minutes. I think, and give me feedback on the show length if you want longer, shorter. I think probably about a 30 to 50 hour format is good, but let's play with it. Give me feedback on everything. Let's, obviously this will be hopefully an indefinite project with seasons and things like that. So all feedback welcome in terms of every function of this project. But anyway, so part of what I think is important in the political revolution is this media revolution. And part of what when I noticed that this hashtag was being censored, that gave me this more incentive to be like, okay, this is all the more reason that we're going to need to be speaking up on these issues, because if it's getting censored on Twitter, it's probably getting censored in other places, and not just censored in terms of it's getting taken off and people's opinions are being suppressed where they think they're having free speech and posting publicly, but then where are these stories just not ever getting covered to begin with, because they're getting censored on Twitter, which means obviously they're just not even making it into the editorial room at so many of these places. So to me, this was this hot button thing where I was like, okay, anything that's getting censored, we actively need to be investigating that more and figuring out why. And it really gives us kind of a just kind of the weakness of what the media is putting out there, and what Twitter is putting out there. And that, to me, is one of the most important functions of Twitter and people using Twitter, is observing what's getting censored and why it's getting censored, and focusing our energy on explaining the situation that's going on that's so bad that Twitter doesn't want you to be reading what other people are tweeting about it, nor do they even want you to know that people are talking about it. It's really kind of creepy when you think about it. So let's see here. Everyone should tweet. The way I see it is, I'm totally on Bernie's page with how he says that we need to have a moral and political war against the billionaire class. That's how I consider basically my life ever since he ran for president, and I think that that is something that should translate into a media revolution, and the way that that gets expressed is using your Twitter to address the billionaire class. And you can basically, the way I use Twitter is just, I tweet once in a while personal things, but most of it is I am addressing either media entities, media journalists, or politicians, and calling them out basically. And I hate to sound like I'm a really negative person, and I feel like there's so many people that follow my Twitter and like, oh, Zach's so angry all the time, and I'm like, not. I'm always smiling, but especially when I have a donut. But I really think that that's a really helpful use of the tool, and using Twitter for that purpose. I think that that's its main purpose for us in the political revolution, is having this opportunity to address every single tweet that comes from the media and every single statement that comes from a politician. I picture it like it's like a football team or any other sports team, where we all, I am going to be covering this one person, and you're going to be covering that one person. We all have our one person who we're covering, so we make sure that no one gets away with anything. Obviously, there's way more of us than journalists and politicians, which is good, and all the more reason we should be making sure to think, okay, am I covering my senators? Am I covering my congresspeople? Am I covering my governor? Am I covering my mayor? What are all my political representatives, and who are all the financial donors that are contributing to them, and what are the media entities that are getting paid for commercials, or getting paid in the same system of commercials? So those are the places that I think that people should be addressing their tweets in general. It's just, finding tweets and responding to them to kind of take them down, basically. In terms of let's see here. I'm gonna do some Twitter tips, but I don't think that there is enough time to talk about those yet. So I am just going to touch on three more things now, and then wrap up in terms of what the general gist of the program is going to be. And so it's going to be three main things. Well, 3 topics, and then a guest, and then some Twitter 101, and some fun stuff. My personal goal in life is to have a show called The Zach Haller Affair, where I do all this stuff, so this is step 1, so we'll see. But anyway, so we can kind of shift gears real quick here, and transition into what's trending now. And I've been super busy working on this, and not preparing necessarily, but working on some of this stuff and a few other things, so I haven't read the news as much this week as I really wish I would have, so it's good that this is a little bit of a shortened version. But what's trending, what's not trending, and what should be trending are the 3 approaches that we're going to take on this show, and I think that that's a good those are 3 good things to be thinking about all the time when people are analyzing current events: what's trending, what's not, what should be. 3 is a good number for ideas in terms of like, it's just a really helpful and good number for organizing. So we're going to talk about what's trending, what's not, and what should be. So firstly, what is trending? I'm sure most of you, well, people who have been paying attention to the news, Jeff Sessions has been kind of the big person in the news. And in general on these, we kind of want to be talking about like the media angle, but I also want to kind of just give my feedback on the situations as they're happening as best I can, to help stimulate the conversation, and keep just discussing these issues. So Jeff Sessions, and a lot has happened today. So obviously we all may be on different pages in terms of what all we've read, but Jeff Sessions, basically there's this continuing push from the Democrats, all the anti-Trump crowd is continuing to do anything they can, pounding to kind of basically break anyone in the Trump administration. And so Jeff Sessions is under the microscope right now for for this perjury case. He recused himself. There's so many things that happened today. I almost don't even want to like try and explain to the timeline, because I might even get it wrong because it's still developing story. But this has basically been kind of the top trend, and it should be, and it's good in terms of we should be really strictly vetting Jeff Sessions and constantly examining him, because he's one of the worst. He's got a really bad past, and he definitely absolutely needs, he shouldn't be Attorney General. It's an absolute ridiculous, crazy thing that we have him as Attorney General, and he was confirmed by lots of people that we should know. But it's weird because he's getting kind of brought down for something that's not really related to his problematic views that really should have disqualified him for the position to begin with. And part of what is so frustrating, seeing this analysis, or seeing these people, seeing Democrats, and there's a lot of Democrats and Republicans on the same team against Trump, which obviously it's part of the reason Trump was so popular is because he was taking on both establishments, which is in my opinion a good thing, and a weird thing he had in common with Bernie is both of them were in a party but were literally addressing and confronting both parties. So everybody's against Trump, and the Russia-phobia keeps coming in, and the whole series of events with Sessions and him recusing himself from this are all related to Russia. And we can talk about that as much as you want. Maybe, I don't know, whatever. It drives me insane that this Russia story is still kind of percolating. And besides all of the terrible things that are going on in our country in terms of we need clean water for Flint, we need these pipelines to be stopped, there are all these crises that we need to be addressing. Democrats love any opportunity, and obviously Republicans are generally more corporate, and wouldn't we ever be expected to support social justice type causes to begin with. But the corporate Democrats love the opportunity to not talk about poverty in America, not talk about clean water, not talk about all these issues that they aren't doing anything on. Obviously, they're continuing issues because no one's doing anything on them. And so here they end up just kind of beating the war drum and using any possible, kind of playing out this storyline about Russia being this terrible boogeyman in any way they can to try and discredit Trump and anyone who says anything remotely favorable about Russia, which is crazy in general. But also, it's just so obvious that the entire political establishment was prepared for Hillary Clinton to be president, and all of the industry around war in Ukraine and the area, obviously that whole military-industrial complex, they're still getting money from Trump. It's coming through different routes, but to me, it's just so clear that they are beating the war drum on Russia as much as possible to be able to continue to move on these plans to, just continue to escalate tension in Russia and to the benefit of the military-industrial complex. So it's stressful to me to see the Democrats on this topic, both avoiding important topics and banging the war drum, and also trying to disqualify Sessions for something that is debatable. It's early. They shouldn't even be vetting into this explanation until in this investigation. Like, it's just crazy, and they're really, in my opinion, they look bad by not addressing the real serious issues and just trying to take any first crisis or any first trending problem as a way to discredit and remove someone from office. I obviously, again, am in favor of Jeff Sessions not being Attorney General as soon as possible. But it's just weird and not good that the way that it's being approached is based on these weird false pretenses. And it's really stressful to me to see so many Democrats that are just totally fine going into this whole storyline and not actually taking real political stances on terrible things in Jeff Sessions' past, like his civil rights record, like his immigration record. There are all of these stands that they could be taking against Jeff Sessions. You know, obviously there's not like something right now going on for them to use as, you know, ammunition against him, but then again, so many of them confirmed him as Attorney General. So it's a hot mess, for sure. But my hot take on that hot mess is that it is an inappropriate approach to, you know, obviously the end of, you know, if Jeff Sessions isn't Attorney General, I think that's a good thing. Hopefully someone better would be replaced by him. I have no idea who the next in line for that job would be, so it's like, be careful what you wish for. I don't know. But at the same time, it just, you know, we want to be building credibility by leveraging legitimate arguments against politicians or elected officials because they are, you know, supporting policies that don't help the people, not this just Russia-phobia. It's like this, it's so many of these liberals that are so anti-xenophobia when they're like talking, and they really stand up against a lot of the xenophobia against immigrants, but then they're totally fine just being super, super, super xenophobic about Russia in particular. It's really one of the galling liberal hypocrisies. Anyway, so that's what's trending. What's not trending? So the scary thing to me that is not trending is, it's always the climate. I really feel like the planet is melting a lot faster than we even realize, even though we realize that it is melting really fast. But Antarctica just broke its record. I think it was 63 degrees in Antarctica was measured, and I don't know a whole lot about what temperature it should typically be in Antarctica, but that's a really high number. It's warmer in Antarctica, in that one spot in Antarctica, than it is in Seattle, so that's weird to me. And I am very concerned about the rate that the planet is warming, and I think that is something that is not trending, you know, for the same reason that so many of the other science issues don't ever trend, is because it's not necessarily going to be such a dramatic event that gets so many people to talk about it at one time. But hopefully many, many people, and hopefully people who are closely related to people in office and politicians and fossil fuel industry executives and things like that, hopefully people start to see really, really how dramatic of a crisis we are in terms of our climate, and start to really get to the heart of the folks who are kind of perpetuating that, to help change the hearts of the people who are making the decisions, while we continue to do everything we can to support scientific research and any type of research and development to reverse the catastrophic effects that are already in a really bad place. But look into these recent findings from Antarctica, because it's important and scary and urgent. So what's trending, what's not, and what should be? What should be trending, in my opinion, is, you know, I didn't really get a good chance to think this one out. I was really going to have a good idea planned. But I think that what should continue to be trending, at least in general, is the pipeline, the Dakota Access Pipeline, the whole pipeline situation in general. This issue kind of gets pulled together in terms of water, and I think that's good because it draws attention to Flint and the crisis of lead exposure, which is a problem with our access to clean water, and also obviously the way that you know, these pipelines and other harmful industrial processes are contaminating and polluting our water. Huge issues. Something that I think that we should be doing in terms of not only just getting information out there about the pipeline and the investors behind it, is so Seattle, and that's one of the reasons why I'm excited to be contributing from Seattle, is we're really making a lot of progress. Shama Sawant is amazing, the Socialist Alternative, lots of activists, lots of employee union groups. There's just a really amazing coalition of people here, and the city council in Seattle is completely Democrat. And so we were able to pass a resolution to divest from Wells Fargo all the city of Seattle contracts. It's kind of in a transition stage right now, because they're looking at what will happen after the contracts are over, which is, I believe, 2018. And basically what Wells Fargo is saying is, fine, we don't want your business anyway, but look, you're going to basically have to go bank with anyone that's also a big contributor to the pipeline anyway. So it's like, haha, you're screwed. It's really a weird kind of, Wells Fargo is terrible in general for all of their practices, but it's, to me, really odd how they're basically saying, well, thanks but no thanks, Seattle, like, you're not, good luck at Chase or good luck at Bank of America. It's like, okay, fortunately the folks at Seattle are a little bit keener than that, and hopefully there'll be an RFP process or something that a credit union or locally owned entity will take those city contracts. But basically I explain this because that was our first step from the city of Seattle's perspective in terms of moving forward with something that we can do to combat the pipeline. That is all we can do as citizens at this time. So I would encourage, and I think people should really think on the city level, because it's easier to organize people in your area. Hopefully you live around people that also are concerned about these issues of water. And look, what city do you live in? Tell me what city you live in. How big is it? Is it small? Who's in the city council? Do you know? Could you run for city council? Figure that out. Figure out if your city council has any investments, who your contracts your city council with. That's a really local level that you can really easily approach, whether you're in a small town or a big city. It's going to look different for everyone, but that's a really good first step. And then basically just try and apply the Seattle model. I think it was Santa Monica that also divested one of the Santa Barbara, Santa Monica, one of those cities in California also divested basically after Seattle. And these are really good first steps that basically can be reiterated in almost any city, and the more that it happens, the better. And that really is going to be, I think a lot of people are going to have a lot easier of a time approaching their city council members than they are any other politician, because of how many people can be on a city council and how closely related or connected you might be to the people in your own city council. And look at those contracts and see who they're investing in, see who they're not, and address that. And it's just crazy because you can't really put the time off. You can't say, oh, I'll do that later, because not only how severe the crises are right now, but look, Seattle just had this huge, massive accomplishment. But at the same time, not really a whole lot is going to change anytime soon. The contracts are still existing. It's going to be till 2018 until they're done. We don't know what's coming in next. So it's a huge, major accomplishment, in my opinion, the first best accomplishment we could make as a city. But at the same time, it's only one of many, many, many steps that we'll need to take in order to really divest our city from these predatory companies. Obviously, it's a really uphill battle. It's crazy to think about being able to kind of pull the city resources out of so many major things. But in terms of the revolution that needs to happen, I think that it's, over time it will happen, and the more we as individuals think about our city councils and what we can do to leverage our city councils to be making good spending decisions, I think that that will have a very positive effect on moving the needle on the ground at a real level without having to be at the state level yet. I think that that will be a really good indicator of the movement that can happen. It's probably easier to replace people on city councils, and it's probably easier for people who have lived in their hometown for a long time to be eligible to run for city council and to be voted into city council because they're interested people. So don't forget about that. Don't forget about city council, and I would encourage people to look at the Seattle model and think about how that could work in their city. So we covered what's trending, what's not, and what should be. And that's good. I think that that's a good, the 3 number is good. We'll talk about Twitter tips next time, and I'm going to get a bit of a program for basically kind of like a syllabus, not like it's going to be a class, but like I said, I'm going to wrap this all up in a podcast at the end. So I want to just be able to let people see what the topics are going to be over time. I'm going to invite speakers, so definitely give me recommendations for speakers, especially if you're finding people who are being censored on Twitter. Anyone who's being censored on Twitter, please tweet them to me or send them to me so I can get them on the show. We can talk about why they're being censored or what they're saying that's getting censored. I obviously don't want to really be too aggressive with that, but at the same time, I think that that's a serious issue if something's being censored or if a person's account is being censored. So definitely send me that information. And again, my name on Twitter is Zach Haller, at Zach, ZACHHALLER. I will be tweeting a lot. I'll be here on Thursday nights at 7 from various locations. and with guests going forward, most likely. But clearly, I can talk forever, so I guess I don't need guests. But I want to have guests, so send me recommendations for who you think would be a great person to have on the show, and just general recommendations for the program. And if somebody said I have something in my teeth, I didn't read it. I have been watching, but nice to spend the evening with you all. I'm going to wrap this up into a Medium post with this video to kind of immortalize, basically to kind of wrap this up. So if someone wants to go back and read it, they can read out the outline of the discussion, watch the video if they prefer, and then at the end we'll put it into an audio file. But if you miss something, we'll have a Medium post. You can share the video later, and I'm going to try and keep the content as productive as possible, and you guys are my best source for making sure I do that. So please say what you want to help me make content that is beneficial to the people and the revolution. So I hope everyone has a nice weekend. I'm going down to Portland, so if you follow me, you will see some Portland tweets. There'll be some voodoo donuts in my life. And take care, everybody. I'll see you next week. Peace out.